shoot to engage. Time on target. 5 mics. Out.
Coffee?
I'm in my car. I just got coffee, and then I'm going to Walmart.
Where does one get coffee in Lebanon? Is that where you're at, or are you in Albany?
I'm in Albany. There's a couple of good spots, and I think so. I like Margin Coffee, and everyone should go to the downtown location because that's not the location I go to. So I want to make sure there's a table. There's not always a table there, but I love Margin Coffee. It's a great shop, and they've expanded. So they have 2 locations in Albany, and now they do have one in Lebanon as well, which I haven't had a chance to visit yet, but I'm sure I will at some point. But it's a great little coffee shop. And my house is pretty busy these days. We have some family that are building, and so we've got some extra family staying with us while they wait for their land to get cleared so they can park their trailer on it. It's a busy, my house is a busy place. So not always easy to get some time that's quiet to think, because the only office we have for my wife and I that we share right now is also Owen's bedroom. And so when he's napping, you can't record or do anything loud in there. So,
Owen's joined us on the podcast a few times. So
many times. He should probably get, his cut of the $0 in revenue that we generate every year. Negative revenue.
Yeah, right. I mean, all the revenue. I don't know. We, killing it on we kill it on mentions, Reagan. I mean, we're everywhere, with the podcast these days.
Is not to generate revenue. It is to generate discussion and to be in the middle of that discussion. And when I read in OPB yesterday morning that we're doing a governor's poll, we were generating discussion. So that's very exciting. Very exciting stuff, Brian.
We've been talking about this for a while. And, as far as I just think with these primaries, there's just this just a bunch of misinformation, and I hate it I'm pretty sure the lobby all hates it. I'm sure the consumers hate it. And then you get a poll like the one guy we interviewed, right, where he does an internet poll, and then you get basically that information. And so with the lack of information, and none of these governor races want to release their polls. So with all that, you kind of leave us with no option is do a poll of our own, because, curiosity kills everything. And so we're just going to go out there and see what we can come up with. So, we'll see what happens. I'm sure no matter what it comes out as is, there'll be, I'm sure we're biased. I'm sure that we're, doing whatever. But I think we're pretty honest on the podcast. I think we're even pretty honest about the candidate races we work on. I think we're pretty honest about stuff that happens in the building for the most part. So I try to, maintain that level of honesty. I don't know if transparency isn't exactly where we're always at, but at least we're honest.
Well, and we're not going to be making 2,000 phone calls from Reagan's basement polling operation. We're going to have a firm that is reputable do this, I think. So I think that'll add credibility. This will be a nationally recognized polling firm that is going to be doing this work, I think. So if that's the plan, then I think it will be.
It's the start of our polling firm, Reagan. I mean, we got to have the Crosstabs polling firm, and
it's a little on the nose, but I agree. I mean, I think there's never been more data available in a lot of ways. There's a lot of different data products. I mean, as a consultant, you get sold all kinds of stuff. You get pitches all the time from these different folks that have new and different ways to collect and synthesize and use your data, right? And but it's never been harder to understand what that data is actually telling you and making decisions based on the data, which is really the thing that you're paying for. Anyone can go get data, but is the data good? And then even if the data is good, you can make bad decisions based on the data. And so that's really what it is. And so our hope is to kind of cut through and say, here's a reasonable look at the data, and here's maybe 1 or 2 viewpoints sometimes on that. And then here's the viewpoints that aren't credible. And so, if we get, if we get really serious about this and are able to do more of this real data and bringing that to the podcast, I think that's great. And I think that our consumers, our listeners are going to enjoy and be able to use that.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, it's kind of, and quite frankly, we just think it's fun. So there's also
It's
that.
fun. A poll is fun. There's nothing more exciting than that email hitting your inbox from the pollster with that result,
Man, it's the
and
best.
tearing
Or
it
it's
open.
nervous.
It's Christmas morning.
Yeah, but you're nervous and you're just like, here's your top lines, and you're just like, do I really want to open it?
Yeah, because sometimes you open it and it's just crushing. You're like, holy smokes, we're
I know.
behind. We're behind by a lot. Or you get that one result that's like, whoa, we are closer than we thought. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah,
Can go a
when
lot of different ways.
we were doing, especially when you're doing some polling, in the general, it's a little more primaries will always, I think primaries always tighten up just in general. They tend to with polling and they're a little bit more difficult. So we're going to try to phrase the questions in a way that, that we can get a little bit more clarity. But I think the polling in the general elections usually have, because you have Democrats and Republicans, so you really do have a varying degree of things you're looking at in regards to the responses. But in primaries, right? I mean, generally speaking, 85% of Republicans think the same way. So they tend to tighten just in general if you're just doing a head-to-head poll. In a governor's race, the good part is you've got three top candidates that I would say amongst Republicans have pretty decent name ID at this point. So it is going to be interesting how it plays out. So we'll see. Hey, I love downtown Albany, by the way. It's one of my favorite places. I think it's kind of a cool little, they've done a lot of good work of reviving that downtown down there, and there's a lot of neat spots in there. I'm sure that's all because of Representative Bosar Davis. So I'm sure that she's single-handedly saved Albany, right? I would
I can
imagine.
tell you it's not our city council, which is somehow all Democrats. I accept the blame for that. But it's not the city council, so maybe it could be Rep.
Well,
Bossart Davis and our amazing county commission saving Albany from itself.
yeah,
Uh,
Roger, let's go. Will
we have a
Tucker. I mean,
great
there's
we have
some
a
good
great
ones.
commission here. Yes, we do.
You do. I
So
love Lynn County, man. It's if I had to live in a valley, I think it'd be Lynn County because I think there's some cool places there in Lynn County. I got some good friends. I mean, my son even spent a summer working for Representative Bossar Davis. Lived in an RV on. Or speaking of RVs, lived on an RV in our RV at our house there and was farming for doing that stuff when he was, I think, 15. He did that summer. And then the next summer, he went and worked for another farm over there in Lynn County because he loved it. And he did that for 3 summers. He, lived in Lynn County and worked on farms and stuff. And man, it was great for him because he spent zero money and he made good money. So it's, as a
yeah,
kid, a teenager or something, getting on one of those work crews is great because you're up at the crack of dawn and you're out there working all day and you're so tired. The only thing you really want to do in the summer is just go jump in Foster Lake or something. So you really don't spend any money. And
yep,
it's really good. Like my son is a really good worker, I think, because of those summers spent working over there in Lynn County. And at a time that was like when he was 15, that was right around COVID, like that summer right after COVID and stuff. And that was a
mhm,
really good opportunity for him to really enjoy just kind of getting out of, his bubble that was in our small town and going to another small town. And, Shelley was so great to him and all the things. So I really do appreciate her for that. And he used to call the cricket radio show all the time and put in requests because he'd be in the tractor, 12 hours a day and stuff. So he'd always call cricket and like put in requests for songs and stuff and almost he built a relationship with the radio show, the DJ there, the guy that does the morning show. I forget his name, but it was kind of funny. He even got to meet him once. So pretty good times of Lynn County.
No, Lynn County's great. I love it. Lived here since 2019, so I'm starting to become like a real resident. I moved around a bunch before then, so besides having grown up in Bend and Deschutes County, I hadn't really spent a lot of time anywhere else. Year, 2 years here or there. So finally put down some roots in Lynn, and I love it. So
Yeah, we got a few primaries in Lynn County too. What's the haps on? Have you seen what's going on between the Jackala primary, the one trying to fill Jamie
oh
Cate's seat?
boy.
That's kind of sweet home all the way down to Lebanon. Is that pretty intense right now in the
It's
sign
starting
wars?
to
Or
pick up. So first of all, the cyber wars on that front. There seems to be a lot of chatter on social media, and it's not between the candidates, it's between their supporters. And each of their supporters is accusing the other supporters of lying
nice,
about their candidate. So I don't want to
that's
really want to
great.
go into it because it's really hard to parse, what's true and what's not. And a lot of it's not truth or false. It's about just your viewpoint on stuff. But the cyber wars are heating up. In terms of the mail and stuff, I just got my first mailer from Angelita Sanchez. I haven't checked that. I'm assuming
Okay.
it's coming. But I think that's going to be an interesting race to watch. But just because there's intensity on social media doesn't mean it's going to be close. Although I agree it's going to tighten. But you and I both discussed we think Angelita is going to win that primary. And so we'll see, how the fundraising and stuff shakes out. But just getting started here. First mailers are hitting on that front. More to come.
Yeah, the keyboard warrior volunteers are pretty interesting on social. That candidates seem to, for the most part, stay away from some of those things. But so it's usually their surrogates or their people online that usually create the infighting amongst the different Facebook groups or things like that are within the district, right? That seven people comment on and stuff. So they seem to be intense, but their reach is very limited. The same with even the governor's race. I mean, you kind of watch what the surrogates are doing on there, but the reach is pretty limited. I mean, I think digital has really lost its flavor when it comes to impacting campaigns that much. I just don't see it because I think people hate listening to one person like rant daily on who their candidate is or who their person they love, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me to pound so
So
much. I think it's
Brian,
good to be open, but not over the top.
I totally agree with you. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think Facebook posting or ads benefit you as a candidate really at all. There's so little ROI on that stuff. I think in terms of, and especially when you're talking about ad dollar spend, right? You
Yeah,
obviously want to be, if you can afford it, as much as you can on TV, and the governor's candidates are going to do that. And there's ways to do that that's more economical. And you know more about this than I do, but there's like traditional broadcast television, which of course is the most expensive, but you can buy a lot of cable and you can buy streaming for a lot less. Although I think those things, as they increase their viewership and become more common, those things will get more expensive. But I think that's a place you would put ads. I would put ads. And some of that kind of gets classified as digital. The lines are very blurry on this stuff now, but really that's TV. And then there's YouTube, and I think specifically like non-skippable or 5-10 second skippable YouTube pre-roll ads. You have people's attention when you're running those things, and so I think that is valuable. But I would say the little display ads on the sides, the pop-up ads, the pre-roll video ads on all these other
yeah,
random video players, that stuff is so cluttered, so hard to see. There's lots of other stuff competing for your attention, even on the same page. We're on mobile now, and so those ads are just
yeah.
there's distractions everywhere on that stuff. And even those same types of ads on social media, really, I don't think on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, really don't deliver what you want on that front. So I would skip a lot of that stuff or do very light touch on that if you've got some money to burn. But if you're a candidate that really has to focus your spending, TV if you can afford it. Otherwise, I want mail and I want texting and I want people on the doors and the phones. I don't think your digital, I wouldn't put money into Facebook ads. I wouldn't put money into display ads really, because I just don't think the benefit is there today.
No, I think you're well, and plus, I mean, you look at like the ads on some of these things, the page is so dang busy that you don't even know what you're looking at, right? So it's
Nope.
pretty hard. I've always, I'm a big believer of talking to people in their mailboxes, so I kind of stick with that. That's always been my tried and true method, but it always depends on budget. Budget dictates a lot of things, and really you got to take a look at how much money do you have. The hardest part about I can put together the greatest budget in the world, but do they
Can
actually
you
have
raise it?
Yeah, that's the real question is, can you raise it? So,
And the consultants, they can help, but they don't raise the money. People give to candidates. So the candidate has to go raise the money at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how good your consultant is, don't matter how many relationships they have, doesn't matter how well known they are. At the end of the day, if you're investing, if it's a donor, if it's a business, if it's lobby, they're investing in the candidate. They want to talk to the candidate. They want to know what the candidate thinks. They want to know how the candidate thinks, because that's going to
yeah,
dictate what type of elected official they are, and if this person is going to be somebody that we can work with or we can't work with.
yep,
So, you and I and all these other consultants out there, we can be the greatest consultants in the world and have all these relationships and know these donors and whatever, but these guys want to know the elected officials. They want to have a relationship with them, and they don't build that relationship through a consultant. So at the end of
yeah,
the day, as an elected official, if the fundraising isn't happening, it is your fault. You're the candidate. You got to go raise the money, and it's
yeah,
hard.
yeah. It really is. Well, here, I got a good one for you. You don't even know I'm going to bring this up, but in the funny world of if you have no money, you can do what Ben Fisher's doing in House District 18. You can put out a press release that says that he's going to propose
Oh no!
legislation to remove the $178 per diem pay for legislators with a simple bologna sandwich. And this proposal will remain in effect until the income and affordability of the average Oregonians is raised to an acceptable level. We're supposed to be public servants, not public profiteers, he said. And if our constituents are struggling to make ends meet, it's only fair that lawmakers share in the sacrifice. A bologna sandwich is a reminder of everyday realities Oregonians face. So he caught some
All right,
backlash.
listen. So first, backlash. Okay, read me the backlash.
Oh, yeah. So he caught some backlash from Representative Virgil Osborne. Virgil Osborne he replies and goes, "This is your plan? Question mark. You expect support with this crap? Do you realize how little pay a legislator makes? And do you realize
All
that
right,
the PM
so
is the only way a rural legislator can afford to be in Salem for 6 months? Pure
all
garbage.
right.
Pure
Oh,
garbage is what he ended
okay. So I have a hot take on this, Brian. I think that's a good press release from Ben Fisher. Honestly, I think that's good. Now, I think his problem is going to be getting that message out there. I doubt he's going to get a ton of coverage on it. And so that means that the average voter is going to hear about it unless he puts it in the mail. He writes them a letter. If I'm him, I take that. I try to get one headline, just call every media organization you can until you get one headline, and then put that headline in a letter and just do the letter yourself and mail it out to 404s and say, hey, this is my plan. And I think that's his best shot, really, at being relevant in this race. I will say, I understand where Representative Osborne is coming from. I wouldn't go out there and defend per diem if I was a legislator. We already went through this where we had the ballot measure to talk about increasing pay for legislators, and just dead on arrival. Like, nobody
Yeah.
wants that stuff. No one wants to pay politicians more to screw them. That's what the average voter thinks right now. And
They
when I
don't want
just
to pay him
drive by,
anything. They don't
well,
want
and
to pay
I
him anything.
that's true.
Yeah.
100%. Volunteer is what they'd prefer, I think. And with diesel at $6 a gallon, gas at over 4, shoot. I mean, I'm kind of with them in a lot of
Yeah.
respects. So I wouldn't go out there defending per diem if I was a elected official. Doesn't mean we should eliminate it, because it's kind of built into, and it might even be constitutional. I don't know. I need to have to go back and look, because I
I
think
believe it is.
the
Yeah.
Constitution covers it.
It's fine. I mean, yes, you're right from like he's for somebody that has no money, you got to create a headline, right? So I can appreciate that. He lacked the clarity on until average Oregonians make an average wage. That has no relevance, right? I mean, you it's got to be a little bit more thought out. I think his premise is good and the idea of it, right? But also the other side I would say is I believe Ben Fisher lives in like Hubbard. He can drive back and forth every day. He's literally down the road from the Capitol. So it's a little disingenuous when, somebody like my wife or Virgil got to drive 2, 3 hours. They can't do that every day.
No.
So and most of the Democrat legislators, except for what, Pam Marsh, maybe Emerson Levy, a couple of the Ben folks, they go home every night. So
Well, and even some of the Portland folks, not to bail them out here, but if you've got pretty bad traffic, I mean, your drive home is 2, 3 hours also. If you hit a bad spot on I-5,
yeah.
405, 205. So a lot of them do get places in Salem just to make it a little simpler. So like, I get
Yeah.
it.
And they only get it during session, by the
Yeah.
way. And the funny part is so whether you have to stay the night or you drive home, you get it regardless. Therefore, that's why it's constitutional.
Yep.
Now, in places like Arizona, they've messed with their per diem a little bit. So if you're a legislator that lives within Maricopa County, which is basically all of the valley in Phoenix, you don't get per diem. Only the people that live outside of Maricopa County get the per diem. And
Yeah.
that has caused so many internal fights within Arizona. And I can see that within like the legislature, if we started having the fight. I mean, could you imagine the internal battle of like how far is too far and how far do you not get it? Is it an hour? Is it 60 miles? Like what's the number, right? And all your Portland legislators would only vote for anything that allows them to keep the per diem, and then
Yep.
anybody who lives in Salem basically doesn't get
I
the
think
per diem.
we have a bonus per diem if you go over a certain number of miles, right?
I don't
I
think
feel
so.
like we
No.
have a kicker. Maybe,
No.
that might just be for interim days. If you had to drive over a certain number of miles, maybe that's what it is.
You
But
only get and only per diem only exists when we're actually in session. So when you're out of session, all you get is you get a monthly allowance based on the geographic size of your district.
that's right. That's right.
So I think it's anywhere from 300 to $750 a
Because the
month. And
idea is when you're not in session, you're traveling around that district. And so the bigger your district is, the more you're traveling.
yeah. Well, that's supposedly the the scenario.
It may not always be true. Depends on the person.
Depends on how many people actually, because really, if you want to be a legislator, that you can do as much or as little as you want as a legislator. A lot of that's up to you, right? So, I do find that part kind of that's a little bit more subject to some of the things. So,
Yes.
hey, I wanted to get one last thing, and we can kind of let some people go. But I know you watched it, but Willamette Week did a great article on because Willamette Week does these. Let me try to set this up a little bit. So Willamette Week, anybody who kind of touches the metro area, like House districts or Senate districts, they will have them in and they do interviews and they do things and then they ultimately do endorsements. They don't do them outside of the metro area, right? I believe I have that correct. And
Yep.
then, so they have them come in, and they only do it. They make them all come in together, and they sit in this conference room, and then they ask them all questions, and they of course want to get really frank responses and stuff like that. And Nigel and his team over there do, I would say, a pretty admirable job of like hitting people with some. They're well researched. Let's just say that. So they had the House District 52 candidates in, and there's a little story on Willamette Week. I'll put it in the notes so you can go read it and then watch the 5-minute YouTube clip that they released. But it was centered on this idea that the guy Nick Walden Plublone that ran last time, lost to Jeff Helfrich in House District 52, quote unquote, stepped in it when it came to talking about data centers.
Yeah.
And it piqued my interest because the Democrats are really like seem to be going down this anti-AI, anti-data center mentality in Oregon, where I bet we're even going to see some legislation that really hits with. We saw this with Senator Salmon's bill, where in her bill in Hillsborough, the bill literally cleared out it said no data centers, and people were still hammering that the industrial land was going to go to data centers. So
If they could invent a way for a data center or a data center company to like even look at the land wrong, they just started freaking out. And I think Brian, this is the next 6 years of Oregon politics, especially on the Democratic side. And I think it'll seep into and bleed into the Republican side as well, is going to be a dominant discussion about do we need data centers? Do we want data centers? What are they using the data centers for? I mean, unfortunately, I think this is going to start dominating politics.
yeah, yeah, it could be a big fight. So in that House District 52, Google is in the Dalles, right? And they've been there a long time. They've been there, north of a decade at this point. So they've been there. They've been around a long time. So, and it was kind of funny. So basically Nick Walden Publone went and met with the trade unions, and they kind of started talking about data centers. And then basically he goes, oh yeah, data centers bad. They use too much water, blah, blah, blah. And then the trade unions go, and then it was like, uh-oh, data centers hire trade unions to build all these things. So now you have this whole intersection between, well, trade unions really want trade union jobs. But now they're fighting. Well, they want data centers because that's really good, high-paying construction jobs for many, many, many years. And those electrical contractors and some of those guys working on those data centers, I mean, they're getting paid, $60 to $80 to $90 an hour, if not more, just to show up at the data center jobs, right? So it's pretty wild that you have this thing, and what ensued between them was basically this discussion. But the key about it, and this is really kind of what I want to talk about, and everybody can go watch that and see how they feel about it. But right near the end of the video, there was a statement that I think it wasn't Nick Walden, it was that Hank Sanders said it, who he said in his interview with the trade unions, they hate Tina Kotek. He says it on the video, and I think that was the one that really got my ear to go, oh, the trade unions hate Tina Kotek? That seems very interesting to me, and they're outwardly saying this to Democrat candidates? And the bad part was Willamette Week didn't go, whoa, 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 what did you just say? Because I think that is the real news in all of that. The real news is that the trade unions, quote unquote, hate Tina Kotek.
And so I watched the clip. I guess it wasn't, and you can help me through this. It wasn't terribly clear to me why that's the case. Is it because she isn't responsive working with them, or she isn't successful in pushing forward more projects for them, getting the I-5 bridge built or whatever the top issue is? Like, do you have any idea like what it was that would have spurred that or caused them to say that?
Well, that was the thing. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I wanted, and hopefully maybe Nigel or the other crew that was in there in the full video, because that's when I heard that I was like, whoa, whoa, and there was no follow up, because I went to where you went. Where like, oh my God, I have tons of questions now. Like, what is it do you hate about Tina Kotek? Because it seems like she's been bending over backwards for union labor. I mean, from the project labor agreements to everything you can think of, she bends over backwards for these, for the trades, right? And we can't even get housing built because of the trade unions and prevailing wage, and they're just destroying us and causing, affordable housing to cost, $500-600 a square foot, upwards of $800,000 for a one-bedroom apartment, which is insane, right? But it's all because of the prevailing wage and stuff that she stuck her neck out for. So I just found it very interesting, and that was just a unique thing that hopefully comes out of these sort of discussions you have with candidates that really, I don't know, it doesn't really change anything. I just found it very interesting, and I find it refreshing that people are putting their guards down and then they just talk, because I think people sometimes forget the camera's on when they're in those interviews and they're recording it.
And the way they put the camera in kind of the corner of the room, you can't see the people asking the questions, but you can see all three candidates in this sense, or in these other endorsement interviews too, or whatever number of candidates. I love these. These are great. They generate great moments, two or three, seems like every cycle.
Yeah.
In between this and the next podcast, I'm going to dig into this and see if I can figure out what exactly it is that's driving these guys. Might even send an email to the building trades, give them a comment, see if they'll give a comment to Crosstabs on this. That would be fascinating to see. And also, did they endorse her? So that's the other thing I need to go check on now is because there's a couple of these groups that are declining to endorse, at least in the primary,
Yeah.
Governor Kotek, as sort of like a signal to we don't think you've done enough.
Oh,
And
I
we'll see.
know.
I haven't checked to see if the building trades are in that category.
I think with all unions and people in that group, it's never enough. Like it's just never enough. It's kind of like Oregon Firearms Federation for Republicans, right? Like you're never hard right enough on 2A. Like it's never good enough for Kevin because you know why? Because he has to always make the boogeyman. Like somebody always has to be the bad guy. And I think with the labor unions, and I think because it's run by people who basically have to make sure that their job or what they do is important. So they almost create fake narratives, I think, on sometimes just to create the reason for their existence. And I think I had this discussion with a few people in regards like Second Amendment stuff. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure 99.9% of Republicans are kind of on board with the 2A stuff. I haven't really seen a gun grabber Republican in a while now. I don't have you, Reagan. I just haven't really seen anybody that's on that. So I just kind of feel like it's almost a non-issue anymore, especially within Republican primaries.
Yeah, last time was the red flag bill, which I think Boquist supported, and he did get ripped pretty hard by the Second Amendment folks for that one. And I would generally consider him a strong advocate for the Second Amendment. That
Yeah.
was just kind of a random one-off thing,
Yeah.
and I think there may have been a few other Republicans working with him on that. But no, that's a given position these days in the Republican Party.
Yeah, I think so too. And I just feel, and because it just doesn't seem to come up. But I wonder within the Democrat Party, it feels like there's a lot more groups that are starting to really bifurcate and kind of crack the middle of their structures. So you got everything from environmental policy to land use policies to the data center stuff versus jobs, right? I mean, so you got a lot of like energy policy, water, like a lot of these things, like these groups are getting in there and they're really, pushing Democrats within these primaries. So it's going to be interesting to see how these primaries that we talked about last week or the week before, whenever we did that one with Jake. It'd be interesting to see kind of how they turn out in these primaries to see kind of maybe which messaging is really kind of winning the primaries, because they do have a lot of groups that are really pushing people in different directions. So,
Totally agree. Last thing,
yep.
I would encourage everybody. Oregon Journalism Project, which is kind of built out and has some of the same folks as Willamette Week. They did a quick spotlight on Representative Ken Helm, and people should go read that because they ask him a bunch of questions. They ask him about land use. They ask him about farm stores. They ask him about primaries of incumbent Democrats. They ask about working and sharing committee chairmanships with Republicans. Lots of fascinating stuff in there. I really came to respect and appreciate Representative Helm. Very sad that he's leaving the legislature. But I think he gives Democrats basically a roadmap, kind of, that if they want to follow it, they could be very successful and unfortunately probably run the state for another 40 years, except if they followed his roadmap, it wouldn't be into the ground. So I totally recommend everybody should go read Oregon Journalism Project's Spotlight of Representative Ken Helm. And it even covers some of the stuff that we've talked about today.
Well, good. I don't, nobody really wants to read about somebody after they're gone.
He's not gone yet. He's still in office.
You're already gone. It's like
nothing.
after what did you said? So your name ID drops 50% every year after you're out of office.
Yeah.
So, I mean, already nobody knows you, nobody cares as a state representative, and then it goes to basically zero after you leave office. So that was fun.
I will from personal slash work experience, my phone and email inboxes were never quieter than the final 6 months working for a legislator. You can probably guess who was not returning to office. It's just nobody needs anything from you.
Yeah.
And you don't have any ability to bring stuff into the next session, really. I mean, you can draft it, but the next guy doesn't have to submit it. And that was the case for us as well. And most of the stuff
Lobby doesn't care. Nobody cares. Yeah, it's kind of. But I do like Ken Helm. I think he's a good guy. I think he. I wish him well in retirement and stuff. But because he is a good guy, I think he is definitely one of the good guys. And I think him and John Lively, we talked about. I mean, there's a couple of old dog Democrats that were. I'm not saying that some of the newer ones aren't bad or horrible or whatever, but those two, at least in my mind, I just thought they were just good humans. On top of being good legislators. So I think that's because I think it's important to be a good legislator. And Ken, and that primary for replacing him is really a barn burner of the ones where you have these polar opposite sides really going after each other. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out, but definitely worth a read there on that. So, hey, and everybody stay tuned Thursday night. The ORP GOP debate for the governor's primary. I'll be there, Reagan. I'm going to be there in person. So
that's very exciting.
I'll try
VIP
to record
seating?
some clips.
Did you get VIP seating for this debate?
I don't know I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a theater. I don't even know if it's the theater. It's just in Hillsborough somewhere. So I don't know. I'll have to ask Dan Mason if I can get VIP.
He's hosting all of his events in Hillsborough. Is there another part of the state? He needs to learn that there's another part of the state that exists besides Hillsborough.
I don't think Dan likes to leave his house. I just think if anything, he just likes to go down the street. So I think that's why he does everything in Hillsborough.
I totally understand that. Don't blame him.
It should be in Central Oregon. I agree. It should be in Central Oregon, Dan. I mean, Redmond's the center of the state. Prineville's really even closer to the center of the state. But, we could have had it here. But I think it should be interesting. So hopefully, I think we'll podcast Friday. Maybe I got to do some stuff with candidates all day Friday. Maybe I'll do my portion in the car and you'll be back in your office. So
there you go.
All right. Consultants and cars.
Getting coffee.
Always. Okay, Reagan. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.